Hello, classmates. This is Mariah. Today we're going to talk about the first steps in academic writing.
First Steps in Academic Writing is the second of 4 books in the Longman Academic Writing series. It is intended for high beginner or low intermediate level students and teaches American English academic writing. The book focuses on mastering essential basic academic writing tools by integrating sentence structure, paragraph organization, the writing process, mechanics, and grammar. First Steps is divided into 6 chapters, with each chapter addressing a different writing genre. In addition, each chapter highlights a different skill. Each chapter is further divided into a chapter preview and 4 parts, except for Chapter 2, which only has the chapter preview and 3 parts. The chapter preview includes a pre-writing activity that gets the students to focus on the new academic skill, such as listing, webbing, outlining, etc., being introduced. Then it transitions to Part 1, which focuses on the organization of the writing required of the genre and skill being taught. This section includes models and practice exercises, plus the new Try It Out section at the end. Part 2 focuses on either sentence structure or grammar, following the same progression as Part 1. Introduce rules, model, practice, and try it out. In Chapter 1 only, Part 2 ends with introducing the concept of journal writing as well as giving the student an assignment. Part 3, except for Chapter 2, focuses on either sentence structure or capitalization and punctuation. Again, following the same pattern seen in the other parts. Lastly, Part 4 focuses on writing in the genre introduced in the pre-writing activity and incorporating the grammar, sentence structures, and/or punctuation and capitalization rules they learned. At the end of the book, there are several appendixes that students are to use throughout the chapters, including information about journal writing, correction symbols guide, the rules learned throughout the book, and reader response and self-check worksheets tailored to each chapter. First Steps in Academic Writing provides a mixed process and product approach, suggesting 4 steps in the writing process: pre-write, first draft, edit, and final copy. This approach will provide a clear and concise process for teaching writing and helping students gain an understanding of the writing process. Its attention to grammar, sentence structure, and punctuation rules gives the text a great foundation for helping students notice when they are making local errors in their writing, as well as providing the teacher guidance on where they should give their attention in different genres. Hogue's attention to detail and keeping the pattern of activities the same throughout the book will help students anticipate what is expected from them each chapter. The resources found in the back of the book will provide the students and teacher with helpful tools for learning grammar rules, understanding correction marks used by the teacher, and templates for reader response and self-evaluation worksheets for each chapter. The only major thing missing from this text is a multimodal approach to language learning, such as incorporating call techniques. If you are in an ESL context, this book would be a relatively good option as it provides different genres of writing, introduces the writing process, and gives focus to important grammar and sentence level issues. However, you may still need to adapt some other materials into the lesson to make it more cohesive and relevant to the context you are teaching in. If you are in the EFL context, this book has a nice structure and approach to teaching the writing process. However, many topics would have to be changed into more culturally relevant topics and the goals of your learners. Finally, you should consider what the purpose of teaching academic writing is. Do you want your students to be able to write an essay full of sources cited, or do they just need to know the basics to get through high school classes? Either way, this book has something to offer everyone, but will not be as useful in EFL and college-level academic writing settings. My framework for evaluating first steps in academic writing comes from Williams' process approach. This approach has a few key characteristics that I used as a framework. The first characteristic I focus on is the reduction in the importance of grammatical correctness and increased emphasis on the expression of meaning and personal voice. The back of First Steps suggests it is focused on academic writing skills. However, the real focus in this book appears to be on grammar, sentence structure, and punctuation within the frame of writing. This focus can be seen in the way the chapters are set up. In Chapter 3 alone, you tackle independent and dependent clauses, adverb subordinators, complex sentences, sentence errors such as fragments, 4 rules of capitalization, and 4 rules for commas. Then add the actual writing focus of how-to paragraphs, and you have the perfect formula for creating a grammar and final product focused ELL. That is not to say you shouldn't be teaching grammar, sentence structures, and punctuation while learning writing skills. In fact, Williams states, a process approach entails a product focus. It is simply not limited to a product focus. Correctness is always a concern, but it is not expected at all stages of the composing process. In addition, this focus on grammar may lead the student to not focus as much on the content or voice of their writing. both of which are important aspects in the process approach. An example of this can be found in the reader response and self-check worksheets. Notice how the reader response sheet's questions are not specific and directed for the reader to respond to, particularly content. And then look at the self-check worksheet. There is no prompt to try and get the writer to examine the content or voice of their writing. Another issue with these worksheets is its lack of teacher involvement. An important characteristic of the process approach states that intervention and assistance from the teacher at various points during the process, rather than simply as an evaluator at the final stage. In the preface, Hogue does indicate that a teacher could use the reader response to give feedback if they so desired. The problem with this statement is it suggests that these worksheets would provide ample feedback to the student about their writing. This way of thinking falls into one of the two major misconceptions about error feedback that was identified by Ortmeyer-Hooper, which states error correction is the only response they need in order to improve as writers. In order to correct this, Ortmeyer-Hooper suggests a two-step approach to evaluations. The first step dictates that the teacher dominantly gives the student global feedback on their first draft. The second step dictates that the teacher will dominantly give local feedback on the draft before it is turned in for a final grade. Ortmeyer-Hooper's approach is in agreement with Williams. And due to the wording used by Hogue, First Steps does not give the right impression to teachers and their role in the writing process. One redeeming trait from the reader response worksheet is that it does encourage a collaborative, supportive environment for composing, including participation of peers. This is a strong characteristic in the process approach. Every chapter provides a separate reader response worksheet designed to target the genre, the structure, and grammar being taught in order to provide better feedback based on the activity. However, as I've already stated earlier, these worksheets are not good models of good reader response worksheets. Another issue with First Steps, according to the process model, is that it is more interested in rhetorical models than it is with the planning, audience, purpose, and author's voice. While the text does provide a pre-writing activity that often includes some extent of planning, it never once addresses who is your audience, what is the purpose of writing about this topic, nor what is your voice in the paper. One of the main goals that teachers should have is to help create good writers who not only have a large repertoire of powerful strategies, but they have sufficient self-awareness of their own process to draw on these alternative techniques as they need them. In other words, they guide their own creative processes. This was stated by Flower in 1985. Freelander would add that an important part of the creative process and those initial planning stages, also known as the invention stage, is allowing students to draw on their L1 when the topics were originally learned or experienced in that language. The final, and arguably the most important characteristic that I will cover of the process approach is its dedication to a more exploratory and recursive approach to writing instead of the popular linear or product approach to writing. In other words, interacting with all stages of the writing process does not have to and should not occur in the order of pre-writing, write first draft, edit, and write the final copy, with the exception of the final copy, as it will always be the last. The process approach focuses on all the stages interacting with each other at almost all stages of writing. The importance of writing in this fashion is it allows the student to not be overwhelmed with all the errors at the end, and instead allows the student to work on errors as they are found. First Steps does a great job with connecting the pre-writing, editing, revising, peer response activities, and final draft components to each other and defining them as being part of the writing process. However, the wording does make the process seem like a product approach instead of the exploratory and recursive act that writing really embodies. Overall, First Steps in academic writing appears to be slightly mixed in its approach. It contains some aspects of the process approach as well as aspects of the product approach. Its biggest pitfalls are its intense focus on grammar and sentence structure and its lack of focus on content and voice. Despite these pitfalls, the text would be useful as long as it is adapted to the context and the topics to fit said context. I hope you found this evaluation useful, and thank you for listening. I had a great semester with y'all. Have a good summer. Bye.